where it goes down, where you hear about the sports all around town. In the country, full of controversy to the highlights. You just not safe in the limelight.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another great episode of The Stoop, where we talk hoops, and more hoops. I'm your guy, TJ. First and foremost, we always want to say thank you to our guys at Nuts and Bolts Sports for always giving us this opportunity. I want to kick it over to my co-host. Say what's up to the people, Kev P.
As always, it's a pleasure to be here.
Now, listen, ladies and gentlemen, this doesn't happen too often, but listen, when you talk about sports, you got to look at the legacy of sports, some of the greatest outfits and apparels, uniforms that teams have played through all over the course of the time. And right now we have a guest with one of the most synonymous brands that is taking over like never before. Guys, the creator of 19.9, Mr. Josh Barnett. Josh Barnett, thank you so much for coming to the Stoop today, sir. Our pleasure to have you.
What's up, fellas? Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here, man. Excited.
Pleasure's out.
It really is. It really is. So, Josh, let's get into it, man. In terms of sports, when did you start taking a liking to sports and what goes on with sports in the sports world?
Well, I'm one of three owners. So our other two owners, Chad Amo and Aaron Loomer, we talk about this all the time, but they always tell me, like, Josh, you've been training for this since you were 7, without even knowing it. So my dad always jokes that he got cable TV when cable TV first got out, so he could shut me up by turning sports on whenever I was crying as a baby. So honestly, you hear that stuff a lot, like it's a labor of love and a passion and stuff. And I've just always kind of been ate up with it. And, luckily I was able to start a business out of it. So all those nights watching old VHSs, they come in handy now.
Got you. So let me ask you this, like growing up, which brand did you probably identify with more? There were so many different brands growing up. I remember as being a 90s kid, there was Starter, there was Logo 7, there was Apex, there was The Game, there was Chalkline. Which one of those brands did you like the most growing up as a kid and why?
All of them, like a little piece of everything. Like East Bay coming through was like Christmas. The Bible coming to you. Yeah, for sure. Like it was wild. So and I was lucky enough to have a mom that would hook me up with some stuff from East Bay. So we would like take them to school and circle them, with the highlighters and stuff, circle the different stuff. I've always been a Nike guy, man, through and through. Like I feel like our generation, or my generation, I'm 40 years old. So my generation was like the first like mass marketed to generation of all of them. And so we just ate up that stuff. Like, like all the ads and stuff, it was like nothing ever seen before. So Nike got me at an early age, and I've stayed true to them for a long time. But I would dip into Starter and all that other stuff too. And then Apex, I kind of miss the Apex stuff, honestly. And I don't know why, because we have the most fun down here recreating some of those Apex designs and bringing those out, because they were just so different and they're so unique, and they have such like a niche following still to this day. So that's a lot of fun too. So it'd be fun to go back, if you could go back now as an adult and have access to some of those East Bay magazines and be able to call in and order now that you got a little money to buy all the stuff that you wanted as a kid.
Hey, Josh, think about some of the prices of those old East Bays. I mean, I think about some of those prices that you would see, and they would layer up the pictures. So the kicks that were really out right now, they'd be highlighted a little bit further than they have. It'd be like a 3D image on the page where they just pop out at. And I remember those days. And let me throw this out at you. My pops still has the last of the 3-peats for the Dallas Cowboys Apex hat, Super Bowl championship hat.
It's got writing all over the top.
Yeah.
I had that too. I had the back-to-back one. I didn't have the final one, but I had the back-to-back one growing up.
Yeah, bro. Absolutely. Go ahead, Kev. Talk to him.
So we'd already discussed, the the Apexes and Starters and brands of that nature. Mitchell and Ness, for the most part, had throwback jersey game on lock for quite some time. However, there seemed to be like a niche that was untapped for the most part in throwback shorts. Then you guys stepped in the game. What was the inspiration?
We actually purchased a company out of New York called Retro College Cuts at the time, and these guys were doing it just kind of as a hobby. And they started the same time we did. So we linked up with those guys early. We're like, hey, this is super dope. They were doing it as a hobby and weren't really doing it correctly. And so they started to go out of business, and we knew they were going out of business. So we latched onto it and just sent them an email asking what was up. And once we kind of got into it and got into the nuts and bolts of it, we realized kind of how it was built, not greatly. So there was a lot of like work to do, and we always knew that it could be so much more. And like I said, it was a tiny outfit from the start. And so we were able to take it over, and then it took us 5 years to build it up to what you see now. So
Wow.
yeah, it was those guys that started it, and then we kind of came in and took it over and took it to the next level.
Well, you definitely did that, and you did a damn good job of it, if I do say so
Appreciate
myself.
that.
And you've released some classics with them
Yes.
coming consistently as well. Do you have a favorite?
Oh, this is like asking favorite child, man. Yeah, so I had a friend, Wes Atterbury, who was my best friend growing up. Played ball with him all the time. We would go from school, right after school, to the park, play all the time. And we actually took a trip up to the Final Four in Indianapolis, and that's when Nike first had come out with their shorts, but they weren't retro at that time because it was what the teams were wearing.
Right.
And so we went to Finish Line up in Indy for the Final Four, and he bought the Yukon 99s, and I bought the Villanova Tim Thomas's. So it was like 96. I call them the 99s because we call them the 99s, but you guys know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Same design, same style. Well, he passed when we were 29 years old, so of melanoma, and so I kind of carry his legacy and stuff. And I always like 99 super important to me, just based on some conversation I had with him before his passing. So when I was able to bring those back, or when we were able to bring those back, that had like a big time meaning to me to get those 99s, because I always associate them with Wes. So that was a day I cried coming down here, just tears of joy, but in remembrance too. So that was pretty special to me. So if I had to go with the pair, I'll go with them. But don't tell like Georgetown and Villanova and all those other guys I said that.
All right. Well, rest in peace to your homie Wes, because I'm sure you guys had
Appreciate it.
many conversations over the years about your favorite player and who was the best and all of that. Now, most basketball fans would say Jordan, Kobe, LeBron as their favorite. Scottie Pippen, as great as he was, traditionally isn't a favorite, but he's yours.
He
What
is.
about his game resonated with you?
Yeah, so like that second fiddle, man. I'm like a second fiddle guy because I never feel like those dudes get like the praise that they need. And Pippen was just cool because everybody loved Jordan, right? Like, and I love Jordan too. But as you watch the Bulls and here in Southern Indiana, we had WGN, so we get to watch every game. Back when WGN was WGN, and you only got a certain amount of channels. So even before they were winning championships, we were able to watch them and kind of get on the Bulls bandwagon down here. And Pippen, like, my friends will listen to this and they'll laugh because I'm not a defensive guy. I just shoot, you know what I mean? Like, that's all I care about. But I watched Pippen dominate games and dominate series defensively. And I never felt like he got his just due for that. But it was always wild as like this basketball purist that I call myself, to watch a guy just take one end of the floor, Jordan take the offensive end of the floor, and then Pippen come down and do the same defensively. And that yin and that yang between the two of them. And you'll hear Pippen's old teammates talk, and they're like, yeah, Scottie guarded my guy too. Like, I was out there to spot up and hit shots, and then on defense, like, Scottie just guarded like three dudes down there for us, and I always thought that was just pretty amazing. And I never thought that he ever got his just due because he was with Jordan. And I love him. And I love those like 6'7" rangy, dunk on you, can pull up, shoot the three, defensive guy. Like, I'm a big T-Mac guy too because he fits the same mold. I've always gravitated toward those dudes for whatever reason.
Wow, that's a lot, Josh. I'm gonna tell you this too. Both of those guys don't get a lot of kudos about the sneakers they used to drop too. They had some dope kicks in their
Sure
runs
did.
as well. But talking about Indiana and WGN and everything with your Chicago ties and stuff like that, the Midwest is low key almost a basketball mecca too, to where we look at regions from New York to LA, but the Midwest is prominent. We talk about some of the great and iconic teams from the 90s and great players that came from even the 80s from the Midwest area. What about the Midwest era sticks out to you and some of your favorite sports memories of watching collegiate basketball growing up?
Well, I grew up in Southern Indiana with no internet, right? Because that was well before the internet. So our world was pretty small. We lived in a pretty small bubble until the likes of Slam magazine came along, until the likes of East Bay and some of those other magazines. that would come, and then much later Dime magazine and all that stuff. But that was when the internet came around. So Slam kind of opened me up to everything else that was out there. And my father did a good job of that too. Like, he knew of Marbury and Iverson and knew their stories and all that stuff, like growing up. And he would tell me, I remember being so geeked for the Iverson Marbury matchup, Georgetown, Georgia Tech in like 95, 96. And my friends at school, like, who, what? I'm like, Marbury. There's a kid named Stephon Marbury. There's a dude named Allen Iverson. Let me tell you about Iverson's story. It's crazy he's even here. Da, 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 you know what I mean? And I only knew that because of my dad. My dad knew it. I really don't even know how the hell he knew it, to be honest. But he knew all that stuff. So we would always watch those games. But living in our small bubble, man, we were Indiana University. We were Bobby Knight. We were Steve Alford. Calvert Chaney is from my hometown. We were huge, huge IU fans. And so getting to go to some of those games from time to time. I went to the IU Kentucky game in '87, Rex Chapman versus Steve Alford. And then we got to see their like parade when they came back home to Bloomington. My parents took me to that. So like that '87 team like sticks out to me more than any other team. And Steve Alford and those dudes and Coach Knight. And that was kind of our bubble that we lived in. So it was all Hoosiers, baby.
Got you. So when people think about the whole retro or vintage thing, they think about jerseys. What about for you? You guys selected more so shorts than jerseys throughout the course of the time.
Yeah, I don't look good in a jersey. That's number one, right? Like the physique is not
That's
there
real.
to pull off that jersey, you know. Maybe wear it to a pool on vacation or something like that. But we thought that the shorts were more versatile, you know. And like you guys had referenced Mitchell and Ness earlier, they do a pretty good job in that space. We've had a lot of people come to us and ask about college jerseys. It gets a little tricky. There's a lot of red tape around that because it's representative of a player. If you want to put a player's name on the back, it gets a little bit more difficult. Plus, there's a double contract between the school, the player, potentially the NBA PA license on that too. So there's a lot. And with the shorts, it's much simpler than that. But we always look at everything that we produce and put out down here as what would we wear type thing. And if we wouldn't wear it or didn't feel comfortable or didn't put out a superior product, I've always had that like thought on the jerseys of if we did it, I want it to be premium. I want it to feel authentic. I want it to be what it needs to be. And if we're not comfortable doing it, we'll pass on it. We just won't do it because we want to kind of stay true to our brand overall and keep everything where we think that we have it right now. So it gets a little tricky with the jerseys. I think the shorts are easy, and I think it's easier for 40-year-old dads of 3 to wear every day, you know, especially since we put pockets in it. Now we can carry cell phones and wallets and, you know, keys and all that stuff that dads have to carry around.
Gotcha.
So we talk about 40-year-old dads and style and things like that. And you even mentioned earlier that our demographic was probably the first one tapped into for some of the large marketing of Jordans and things of that nature. We talked earlier about Pip being your favorite player, and he's had some pretty classic kicks as well. But you're on record as saying the Jordan 3 is the best sneaker of all time. You got to speak on that.
Yeah, talk about that, Josh.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. It's the silhouette, man. I think it's the silhouette. I love it. It's like that perfect mix of, it's not a high top, and it's not a low top. It's like that perfect mid. It's the elephant print. It's the free throw line dunk. It's, you know, it's the shoe it's the shoe that saved Jordan from going somewhere else. So without the 3, you can talk all you want about the 11s and the 13s and everything that came. Without the 3s, you don't even get to it. But I did get a pair of those Union 4s on the last drop, and those things are pretty nice too. So 4s are good. But yeah, 3s and 1s are so versatile. But 3s, I don't know. It's that silhouette. I can never get past it. So I got about 5 or 6 pairs of 3s that I rock pretty routinely.
Yeah, 3s is low key one of my favorites too. It's one of my top 3s.
Well, where do you guys stand? What's your favorite Jordans?
Oh man,
if I
turned the tables, didn't I? Now I'm interviewing you guys.
For me, it's just it's not as much the style of it, but it's more so a comfortability of it. I'd have to go with the 9s. Something about the 9s really resonated with me.
I love the 9s. I have a few pairs of 9s. 9s are good.
My favorite all times are the 11s. They just are. I mean, all the things from Space Jam to them and the patent leather. It was just. I'm a church goer, so I remember growing up as we had patent leather shoes, go to church. So that I actually wore a pair of Jordan 11s to church one time, and my mom didn't get too mad at me. So that was my second pair.
For sure.
My second pair are the 3s, and the last pairs are the 6s. The 6s only because that was his first championship year in '91. So those are my sets. Those are my top 3.
I remember when the poster or the calendar came out of him wearing the 6s with the brick background, and he's doing the dunk or whatever, and everybody's like, "What are the holes? What are those windows?" What like I remember that just being a huge craze, and that was when I was maybe like 8 or 9, and that was when I was kind of like, "What? Why do people? What's going on here?" And then fully hooked. You know what I mean? Like almost instantly after that, but. It was funny because I just remember being in the gym and people depicting every little thing about it because there was no Soul Collector, there was no Nice Kicks, there was no leaked images, no Nike talk, none of that. So you just got this calendar in the mail and then you just went through it like kind of like an East Bay religiously picking out, different elements of what was coming out. Like I miss that, right? That's like the nostalgia feeling. Like
absolutely.
We're spoiled now.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about Mike, and I want to speed up now. We're going to the following year. He's done retiring for the second time from the Bulls. We're talking about the summer of '99. You're building a wiffle ball field in the middle of a goat farm. I need some details, brother.
Yeah.
Well, our buddy, this is good research, by the way. Our buddy, his dad gave us his credit card. That was the first mistake. And so we went from like this little puny field that we like cut with a lawnmower to like, hey, like with this credit card, we could actually like build a legit fence and get some plywood and all that stuff. So that was like the summer of wiffle ball. We built a concession stand out there that we would stock. We'd have friends out. All out. It wasn't our money. That's why. Like we didn't. it wasn't our money. We could have never done that on our own. So yeah, man, that was great times. Just growing up and not having the adult cares, right? Like it was low stress, and it was like, this is our last summer from high school going into college. Let's build this wiffle ball field. Everybody can come out here, hang out, drink, whatever, play wiffle ball, buy some stuff at the concession stand, and have a good time. So that's what we do down here in small town Indiana, man. We have to create that stuff.
What happened with the goats?
And they would stay up. Now, the scariest part of the wiffle ball field was getting down to it because you had to cross through the barn where the goats were. And the goats aren't nice. Like, they're not nice. Like, and there was this one that was huge that was, I guess, the leader of them. And so you had to pick and choose your time to hop the fence. And then it was just a straight sprint, you versus the goat, to hop the next fence to get to the wiffle ball field. So that was, yeah, man, that was fun and scary.
Oh man, I would just like want to see something like that. Like what that look like? Just y'all running, hopping. Goats.
You guys are gonna make me, with this southern accent that I already have. You guys are gonna make me look like the biggest like hick little dude down here in Evansville of all time.
Not
man.
even, bro. You good?
It's all good though.
Listen, Josh, thank you so much for all your anecdotes so far. We got a few more questions we want to get into, especially this one in terms of '90s. So we're talking about East Bay and that eclectic vibe. In the '90s, Nike had some of the greatest college and collegiate apparel ever known. Two of my favorite teams during that time frame was the UNC teams with Antoine Jameson, Vince Carter, also Sheed and Stack had some iconic jerseys. That's when they went from actually had the Nike patch to the actual swoosh. And who can definitely not forget about the Fab Five and all the things that they had as well in terms of their apparel. The thing that stuck out for me the most was their warm-ups. Talk about it like this. What do you think in your mind's eye drives vintage culture? Is it the sneakers? Because they had some great sneakers on, or the apparel itself? Because I can remember in the back of Slam magazine, Jordan was sitting on the ball with those old UNCs. He had the Jordan Carolina lines on, and that was like boom. And then also they had one with Weber. So talk about that.
Yeah. So we have something special coming with the warm-ups. That I can't give you all the details yet because they're in production. I don't have them ready.
Gotcha.
But I will, if you guys want to have me back on, I will gladly come back on and we will break down just the warm-ups from that era, because I finally figured out a way to bring them back, and I'm like, you can tell I feel like I'm overjoyed with it. Like
you're trying to bottle it in right now. You're not trying to explode.
Like, I cannot wait. I'll send you guys some. I'll let you pick them apart. We'll do a pod about them. I'm fired up for them because it's funny that you bring that up. I have 2 duffel bags above my head over here that is full of the 90s Nike warm-ups that we use. And I had the Cincinnati one, a couple of the Duke ones. Yeah, like I had all of them. I have a UNC one that you're talking about, the 93 one in there. And so, roundabout way of answering your question, I'm not really sure. You know, I think the shoes are interesting because you gravitate towards that, but they're also readily available for the most part. Like, most of the time, Nike's going to retro those bangers that everybody wants.
Right.
But who's out there doing the apparel? Who is looking out for the shooting shirts? Who is looking out for the uniforms and stuff? And that's kind of where we fit in. That's kind of our niche. But yeah, I mean, I don't know because okay, so we struggled with the shooting shirt thing, right? Because we've been wanting to bring back shooting shirts forever, but then we also were wondering, like, what is our demographic? What's our age demographic look like for wearing a shooting shirt, like an actual shooting shirt? And if you guys remember the Nike ones, heavy as hell. I mean, baggy. I mean, so baggy. Yeah, like I put the ones on. Like, I've gained 40 pounds since high school. I put the ones on from high school, just drowned me. You know what I mean? But I wore those things.
That's how we wore it back then.
Exactly. So figuring out a way to kind of customize those to make them a modern fit and that type of stuff too. I think that's probably why you haven't seen those come back yet, to be honest. Because I've actually heard that Nike's getting out of the warm-up game altogether and won't even be releasing any of those for the upcoming season and beyond as far as for fan gear to get. So I can't remember who told me that, but yeah, I don't know. The uniforms are great. Obviously the Georgetown 96s and things like that, and the Cincinnati's are some of my favorite, and you'll see that stuff change when they change brands too. And then Georgetown just mixed it up and people they grow out of it. The interesting thing to me is the Blue Bloods. Carolinas are virtually the same now, but I know exactly what you're talking about with that cut. It's different enough for the hoops heads like us. If we were to bring out the 93 UNC shorts, we would sell out in minutes. Even though they look similar to what they are now. Wow. Same thing with IU. IU hasn't changed their shorts in 40 plus years. But we just brought them out on Wednesday and sold out of them again. So part of that is the nostalgia. Part of that is our ability to tell the story of those shorts too. And then picking up and being diligent on any little design detail that you can that makes them different than what's going on now. I don't know if I did a good job of answering your question, but I talked a lot.
No, you did. Because one thing, like I said, I haven't noticed that we talk about sneakers all the time, but some of those warm-ups, like the 93 shooting shirts, and then there would be a shooting shirt, then there would be a shirt they would run out in, and there was a shooting shirt underneath that, they would layer up, and it would just be amazing. And I had, I think the 93 one had the collar from Carolina, because I'm a Carolina fan.
So UNC real big across underneath the chest.
Down there. So there's one from Sheed's year, there's one from when they won the national title. I had those. I had the jersey where I had Montross's jersey that had the patch before they went to the swoosh.
Yeah.
I had both the home and away shorts as well.
I have the Moten jersey, Syracuse jersey in the other room that had the patch. Yeah, that's you. That's it. I love Moten.
Talk about that later.
And it's just one of those things where, man, they don't bring that back, and you're like, well, why not? Because there's guys in our demographic that were still like, we're fans, and we would love to have that stuff back, and they just don't do it. So that's why I wanted to ask you about it, bro.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I think college gets slept on quite a bit. I think you see that because I think that, and I don't know because I'm not inside these companies, but I think your bigger companies, there's so much money involved in those Major League Baseball and NBA and NHL and so on, the NFL, obviously, that they have to tie up so much of their resources to that college kind of just gets put on the back burner. And then in March, everybody zeroes in on college and they do like a limited launch or a quick strike or something like that, and then it's just gone in a flash. And we've kind of carved our niche by just being the only exclusive college basketball brand. And we live it, man. We live it every day. So it's been fun. It's been real fun.
Let me keep moving real quick. Knowing you from Indiana, as you came small town, but you all around the world globally with that product in 1999. But I had a quick question for you. throughout the course of the years, if you looked at the brands I talked about earlier, from Starter to Chalk Line to Logo 7 Apex, they were heavily influential in the rap game back in the 90s as well. Do you think you guys lend to a brand or to the culture? Or they just for the generalized fans in terms of the 1999 brand?
I think they're for everybody and anybody that's interested in it. One thing that I was big on when we started the company was that the influencers, it's a tricky game, right? Because you need people out there that kind of pump your product and stuff. But I'm so adamant about that stuff happening organically that I have a really hard time reaching out to people like, hey, here's our stuff. Would love it if you could post it on Instagram, da 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 da. We run into a lot of people, a lot of ex-players and stuff that we'll send our apparel to. And I always write a handwritten note. And I think it's smart as a small business owner to always handwrite something in anything that you send, because there's a personal touch to that. And I just say like, hey, thanks for making the shorts iconic. We appreciate, the work that you put in and make it like, if Kenny Anderson doesn't make the Georgia Tech 90 shorts, the Georgia Tech 90 shorts, then we don't have a company. So when I talk to Kenny or I send Kenny something, it's just a big thank you. Thank you for doing what you did in the game of basketball. And then I always write, the last line I write is no strings attached. We just appreciate connecting with people in the basketball world. It's always the last thing, because I don't want it to come across like I'm only sending you this because I need you to pump it on social media because I need to make money off of that. I don't, number one. And then number two, I just got to talk to Kenny Anderson. Like that's cool shit to me. I don't care about anything else that comes out of it. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. So, and I know there's a ton of ways to skin that cat and do the Instagram stuff, but that's where we have always been. And I don't think that's where we'll ever gravitate out of that, honestly.
Gotcha. We thought it was cool too. We spoke to Kenny last week as well, bro.
Kenny's the man.
Yeah,
he's in Nashville now, man. He's not too far from me. I'm gonna go down there and hook up with him at some point. He's coaching, so
yes,
I'm gonna have to go go check out a game.
That'd be dope. TJ, you good?
Yeah, it's on you next.
Yeah, I wanted to ask this. You're coming up on 8 years since the web launch. For many up-and-coming companies, web presence is a game changer, and you've been doing well. With COVID keeping people at home for a period of time, would I be right in assuming that it's had an impact in sales? Because I've been trying to get a particular pair of shorts, and they seem to sell out so quickly. Is that something? I mean, obviously, you guys have always done well, but
yeah,
has it been ramped up because of COVID?
Great question. It's really hard. It's really hard to pinpoint exactly how much. But I think we'd be remiss to say that it had no impact. I don't think that's fair at all. We had this like big ramping up. We knew that this was coming. Like I knew it in my heart of hearts. You guys know how that goes when you just have a gut feeling that this thing's about to blow. And we'd taken all the right steps for all the years that we've been in business, keying in, and everything was just coming together at once. And then that's when COVID hit. And so it was like, uh-oh, how is this going to play? And so we knew that this was coming, but I think COVID ramped it up a little bit in sales because we were able to reach those people, like you said, that were just sitting at home. People needed something to feel good about, number one. People missed the tournament. So a lot of people canceled travel plans. So they weren't spending money in the travel to go to games and stuff, still sports fans. So, hey, I just saved $3,000 on all of us going to the Final Four, but I can buy these shorts and this shirt. And, I have more discretionary income now because all this stuff has gotten canceled. So I think that we've seen an uptick in sales in that. But I also don't want to discredit the work that we put in, just say this is only because people were at home and we're getting in front of them, because this was building for a good 3 years up until this launch in March. And that's when stuff really kind of took off. It just also happened to coincide with COVID, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, by no means are we saying that COVID is
No. I didn't take it like that.
Trust me when I tell you I know, but I was just wondering if that helped ramp it up anyway.
I think it helped everybody. I think it helped everybody in the e-commerce world. The people that got hurt were the people that built off wholesale. Because the wholesale orders, the wholesale orders kind of dried up. So, but we were never built like that.
Okay. Tell us about your partnership with Aaron Myers as it pertains to high volume shooters. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I was a teacher for 17 years. So I was an eighth grade social studies teacher for 17 years. And he was the assistant principal for the last 4 of those. So we would always meet in the hallways and talk hoops when we could get away from the kids for a minute and get some adult time to kind of refresh before we had to go in and teach another period. And so it was all his idea. He was like, let's put together a podcast. I'm like, well, we talk enough shit to each other in the hallway. We might as well just put it on record and talk. So that's kind of how it happened. And we're looking to revamp some things, kind of change some stuff around. And I think there's some big plans on the horizon, or big things on the horizon to work with the pod too. And it's really just fun. Like, we just have fun. I'm sure, like you guys too, it's just fun to get on here and rap and talk crap about the stuff that you love, right? And then it's cool to me to be on here with you guys, because you guys are throwing out questions that I'm not even prepared to answer. I'm like, man, the research is great. And then, but it's like the connection of, oh yeah, I remember that. Like, oh, I had this one. You had this one. This is the, I just love that stuff. I love connecting with people, man. I love it. And the podcast helps us do that. So it's cool.
Hey, Josh, we don't want to take nothing away from you guys. You guys have had a great, dope, and stellar run. You've built your guys' brand up, and it's been a slow grind to where you are right now. You just grown to prominence, and everybody really salutes you guys. Like Kev said, you guys are always out of stock. People, no matter what walk of life they come from, they're into the 19.9 brand. They're into the collective of shorts and apparel that you guys have. I know we talked about the shooting shirts, but is there anything else that you could possibly share that you think you guys want to get into next, or whatever you see or let me say this, what do you see the brand hoping to do in the future more so?
We got a couple things up our sleeve. I can't give it away though.
We know you can't give it all away.
We're like a month and a half too early on this, guys. In a month and a half, I'll come back. I'll tell you all about everything. I think there's more avenues to explore, for sure, that we're going to. And I think there's a couple categories that fit the brand just perfectly and seamlessly. And I think our criteria on that, or my criteria, has always been, it has to be unique. And it has to fit the brand image. It has to fit the college basketball world, so to speak. So we found a couple of products that did that. I don't want to do something that other people are doing, and I don't want to do something that is already, out there. So if we can, that's kind of the criteria. If we can find a couple categories of stuff that is not, then we'll go through and we'll go into production with those. And we have two. I mentioned the shooting shirts. There's another category that we're going to be getting into here next month that I think fits too. I can't give it away just yet.
No worries. Thank you for that.
I have a question for you, because this has been a topic that has taken place amongst friends and families for a number of years. And I know that you guys talked about it on your podcast as well. So for those who may have missed it, I want to go back to your discussion of the 1993 draft.
Okay.
Posed, had the trade not taken place, where you basically may have had Weber and Shaq on the Magic together, as opposed to that trade for Penny, could they have been better than Duncan and Robinson? Go.
It's I always think that NBA, it's an organizational thing, right? So like it starts with the players, obviously, but you have to have the right coach in position. You have to have the right GM to build the pieces around it. And there's always, like, the NBA has so many great what ifs. And I'm sure you guys read the book of basketball with Bill Simmons, where he just goes through like a whole list of if this was this and that. And then Shea Serrano has some of that in his book too. And it's just fascinating to sit there and think back, because immediately people back then were like, oh, that won't work. They're too much of the same player. But yeah, were they? Like, I think it could have worked.
Definitely.
But Penny's my guy. That was like the match made in heaven. I do think the Penny Shaq duo is probably a little bit better than the Weber Shaq, but it'd be interesting to see what they would have built around, because they had the shooters, right? They had Nick Anderson, they had Dennis Scott from Lethal Weapon 3 at Georgia Tech. They had some of those pieces, and then they had Scott Skiles, he's a Hoosier, but Michigan State Hoosier, but he's a Hoosier nonetheless. And but he was aging, he was getting old, so they would have had to fill that point guard spot with somebody. Could they have done it and been successful? Probably. But they made a finals, and if those two don't kind of have that rift, or Shaq doesn't want to do his thing, then who knows? But is Shaq going to stay in Orlando if Webber's there? Does that change his career trajectory at all?
Right.
Shaq was the movie guy, man. He was the movie and the rapper guy. He wanted to get out to LA, and
Right. That's where the money was.
Yeah, who knows?
Bag at him, so
go get the bag, right? No matter what happens, like secure the bag first, and then ask questions later.
Well, we know you got fatherly duties, and we're gonna wrap up with this last question because we want to hold you. And I don't want you to count the 81 Hoosiers team because you already mentioned that. But if you had to be a special guest coach for 2 collegiate teams of all time, what 2 teams would that be? And the next question is, yeah, we got you. And the next question is, out of all the college shorts, we're gonna put that to the side. What would be a must-have pair of NBA shorts that Josh needs in his collection?
Okay, so I can knock that one out quick. I would go with the Grizzlies, Bibby, Big Country. Yeah. Those weren't like my favorites when they first came out. I liked them, but now when I see them, I'm like, it's such a 90s pair of shorts. Like you have to have it, right? So those are dope. And the Raptors shorts were pretty dope back then too. And I actually like the ones that when Vince was a rookie and T-Mac was there. They're a little bit more refined and have that stripe that goes up across the back and stuff. Those are pretty dope too. 2 college coaches, right off the jump, I'll go with Coach Knight. Obviously, and I know you said don't bring it back to IU, but I have to because it's Coach Knight. I got to go and spend about 6-7 hours in his house with him a couple years ago. And just got to rap with him and just talk basketball. So and to hear his stories they were legendary. They were funny. I'll go a different direction though and I'll give you 2 others. Jim Valvano, rest in peace, obviously. Such a charismatic guy, and just funny. And he's a guy that you would go and have beers with and just sit there and laugh and never touch your beer. You know what I mean? Because you'd just be laughing the whole time. And then I think Raleigh Massimino, 85 Nova, would be an interesting one too, because he's just kind of a character. I could keep going on this, like John Chaney would be great. John Thompson, rest in peace again, would be great. Some of those dudes that kind of stood up and went against the grain culture-wise would be very interesting, because I think that took a lot of guts for those guys to be those people and be that influential in a time where they didn't really necessarily have to be, and it kind of went against the grain of the culture and what was going on in America at the time. So
it sounds like
I could go like all day on coaches I'd want to meet, but those guys kind of stand out to me, And we might end up in a fight with Coach Chaney too, which would make for a great story too. Like he just comes across like that.
Yeah, he's been known to interrupt their press conferences.
Getting after Coach Cal before people wanted to really fight Coach Cal.
Yeah, it was interesting too, because that would mean you probably want to have a conversation with Dom Haskins too, for people who change the culture and change the landscape of how we look at sports and just do things that are revolutionary. So
yeah, absolutely. Like you go far enough back in the archives like we do here, you just find some really interesting stories, and you pick up on that stuff. And even on the other side of that, the people that didn't want to recruit a certain type of player, and the people that were on the other side, the wrong side of history, as we know now, be interesting as hell to see what their points of view were, right? Like I would love to see both sides and hear everybody talk and just see what the history was like and what the world was like back then, because it's so different than what we have now, and challenges that were faced and all that stuff. It's super interesting, because all that stuff reads like a history book.
Yeah.
You can relate all those teams and what they were going through and the turmoil and stuff and what was going on in America at that time. It's always interesting to me, but I was a history teacher, so I love all that stuff.
Makes sense. Well, listen, Josh, we know you got to go. Thank you for a quick interview, man. It was great. We wish you and 19-9 all the best in the future. And listen, we're going to hold you to it. You got to come back on the Stoop, sit down when you guys drop those new releases, and we'll talk about them. You can hold them up. We give some feedback. We talk about it and do that whole great thing. But once again, thank you so much for coming to the Stoop today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. I had fun, man. I'll gladly come back.
Definitely on. behalf of my great co-host, my guy Kev P, I'm TJ. It's been another great episode of The Stoop. Take care till next time.
Some say that it gets no real on the field or the court. We capture the thrillers. Some opinions and all of the truth. Real people talking real sports on The Stoop.